Rolling.
Welcome back to another episode of the Catch the Sky podcast. With me again this week is Dick Francisco.
Hi, T.
I was going to say, is it just going to be an awkward pause, or are you actually going to say hi to the listeners?
No, I'm still getting back into things.
Gotcha.
Week 2 back.
Right.
Like, I got used to coming on, doing an episode with you and then getting to go on a siesta.
All the time, right? Yeah.
I might have been siestaing there. That was a whoops.
Well, welcome back, and if you care to interact with Dick or I regarding anything you hear this week or any of our previous episodes, you may do so on Twitter at CTSTerry or at I'm Dick Francisco, or on Instagram at The Dick Francisco. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts by searching for the Catch the Sky podcast. And Dick, this week, I think in light of one of my more recent discussions, I wanted to discuss religion because somehow we've gotten this far and never done an episode about it. We went this far without an episode about guns. We went this far without an episode about religion. Like, how did we manage to do that?
That's because we are upstanding, politically correct people who don't talk about those things we're not supposed to. Just kidding. It's because we spent so much time talking about sex. Is it sex and politics? Sex, politics, and religion are those things you're not supposed to talk about. It's just because we spent so much time.
Right.
Refer back to literally every episode.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, see, every episode.
Sex.
That's why we're on volume 10 of the Love Files and all the other...
Exactly.
All the other volumes and miniseries we have are at like volume 4.
So you're right. It was probably just about time for us to tackle yet another one of those taboo subjects you're not supposed to talk about, like religion.
Yeah. So I guess let's start with where we're at with that, right?
Yeah.
So that people know where our biases lie with the discussion
hold
moving
on.
forward.
I got to get down and pray for the 4th time of the day. Just kidding.
Jesus Christ.
Bad joke. I wouldn't even know if this is the time I'm supposed
Hit
to
the
pray.
fucking drum thing.
I was gonna sad trombone myself on that one for a bad joke.
I mean, you can do that too, and then I can edit it over.
It was a little of both. Okay, so where are you at, T? You devout?
No, I was raised Catholic, but I'm out on it. So my personal perspective is that there is something up above us that we do not understand. And one of the things that I usually find in all these religions is they pretty much acknowledge that they don't understand, quote unquote, God or Allah or whoever. And so if you acknowledge that you don't understand that thing, then why do you have so many texts explaining what that thing is? You know? Like it could be.
Sorry, I just got thrown up. I was like, they had texting back then?
No. But just their
Sorry, religious texts.
Right.
Writings. Got it.
Yeah, books, all of those things. Talking about this thing that they, in those same texts, acknowledge that they don't understand. So it's like, What's the fucking point of any of this?
So can I ask you a question? You said you were raised Catholic. What did that mean? Like, did you have to go to church? Did you have to drink the wine and eat the cracker?
I did all that. I was confirmed. I was baptized, did the Holy Communion, everything. I went to Catholic grade school, Catholic high school. So usually I got a double dose of church every week, once with my family and then once at school. So
this explains so much, T. Like, I know you've told me all this before, but wow.
Yeah. Lots of crackers. And so...
so many. It's your love for crackers and wine.
Right.
Wait, that's my love.
Right. So...
It's a great diet, by the way.
Yeah. For me, personally, I think it's probably something like aliens or another intelligent life form that we've probably had some sort of contact with, and again, don't understand. So that falls into my definition of there's something above us, some higher power that we don't understand.
Okay.
And so that's where you might get these wheel within a wheel stories or these Tic Tac videos from the United States government, like these different perspectives of what could conceivably be the exact same thing. Like your car looks different from the back than it does from the front, right?
Yeah.
So these encounters could be different perspectives or told slightly differently. Again, let's think of the game Telephone. And all of a sudden, over the course of a few thousand years, they've evolved into Islam and Judaism.
Ancient aliens. Okay, so you're helping me understand for you that your belief system is, again, you can come back to that core of believing something beyond yourself that doesn't necessarily have to be this definition of, say, organized religion.
No.
Because you don't understand it enough to be that.
No.
Like, we don't understand any of it.
No. And I don't praise it, and I don't
right
anything like that. No.
So I guess that brings up a good point, right? When we start kind of delineating what is religion versus what is not religion, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think for me, you always hear that whole, well, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And I've said it plenty of times. I think that difference is what I think people are trying to acknowledge is that they don't want to or have chosen not to participate in some type of organized religion, like you said, Catholicism or Christianity, or, we could name more than just those two. Mormonism, so fun to talk about, right?
Well, we could do an episode on that.
We could talk about all of these, and we will. But I think then spirituality, how I refer to that, is that's really more that inner, like you're looking individually at your own sense of purpose and self. So that's spirituality. And so I think those two things get put as inverses to each other, but I really don't think they are, because I think religion, like you said, is just this manifestation of trying to explain things we don't know. And as humans, we are driven to understand because our brains are complex or at least capable of understanding. And so we ask and beg these questions, and religion is being used as a vehicle to attempt to explain the unexplainable. But in my head, I kind of just see it as, at its core, isn't it just a mythology? Like when we think about mythology and we think about these stories we were told to explain things as kids that we know 100% aren't maybe untrue, but the truth is more in the lesson that it's trying to teach us. Is mythology is used to help us through life and death, really, right?
Yeah.
To cope with being alive. And so I think maybe religion manifested from that. Now, do I think the way that religion is used, because I think intent matters, that's the part where I get all twisted up.
Well, that's precisely
that's
why
where
I
I
said
stand on
formerly
it.
Catholic. Yeah,
I believe in mythologies and the use of these things to teach us lessons.
right. Yeah,
Those texts you referred to.
Yeah, there's a lot of important lessons and things like that you can learn from these parables and different stories through all sorts of different mythologies. And that is why I believe where it began was wholesome and with good intent to teach people things, and how it's evolved over the course of several millennia is just like any other human run business. And we've seen wars fought with armies that are fighting in the name of the church. Like, that's what the fuck is going on there. The
Crusades, the contradictions, right?
Yeah, out of control.
And I think that's where you start to see, in the name of, and this concept of getting away from ourselves and the consequences of being individually responsible for something and accountable.
Yeah.
Religion then helps us be unaccountable, even though, and I welcome anybody to come and have this discussion with us. We can do this again for sure, to have somebody come and argue the opposite. And I can hear the other side of that. I really, really can. I think in an organized fashion, though, so often we see things that are external of ourselves, including religion, used as an excuse, right? Or as a reasoning for particular action so that we don't have to be accountable to ourselves. And I think that's where religion, to me, starts to just move so far away from that mythology and that reason to help us be better, right? Because the world is so inexplicable. I think we were talking about that. So you always see religion and science kind of butting heads too. I think that's so fascinating to me because it's that, that concept of, do you believe in science or do you believe in religion, and that you can't do both? Right? Because science explains the world. And so how could I possibly understand science and believe in the truth of science if religion is telling me something else? And I think that's, again, when we allow this religiosity to be fact versus to guide us.
Is that a word?
And religiosity, it really is. I know you've laughed at me for saying it before, but it is. It's a total word. It's just like basically.
Is it in the Scrabble dictionary?
Duh. I so want to throw down at Scrabble with you one of these days.
Oh, God.
A strong religious feeling or belief. So it's like that when it's really, really strong, right? Yeah. And like excessive religiousness, I guess, is one of the ways that you could possibly use it. Well, that's where I think fundamentalism comes out of, right? Is you really start to lose your footing.
Theocracy.
Absolutely. And that's what scares me about it, because like we just said, the intent of these were really to guide us, through life in a not even positive, but in that forward progression way versus, we weren't trying to be against each other. And so we should be able to understand science and acknowledge in science, you can trace all the way back to, or all the way down to like the smallest of particles, but you still can't explain it. Even if you explain to me, well, the Big Bang Theory happened, right? Like, tell me the Big Bang Theory happened and I believe you because I believe in the science and the proof, if you will.
Yeah.
What before that? And what caused that? And there will always be an inexplicable
They just
reality.
fired a fucking telescope up into orbit that's going to answer even more of our questions about things like that, Dick. So just give it time, Be patient. Slow down, Dick.
Yeah. Right?
You might not get all the answers in your lifetime, and you might not like that. And that might be why some people turn to religion.
Well, because that's scary to us to not be in control.
Right.
Why do you think that scares us as human beings to not have control?
150 years ago, people never got to experience flight, right? There are things that are going to happen beyond our lifetime that we're just not going to get to experience or see the answers to. And we just need to be comfortable with that.
Yeah, I guess that's the challenge though, right? Is how do we become comfortable with that when it becomes so innate in us of that concept of lack of control immediately is coupled for us as humans with anarchy, right? Like
just realize
if
that
we
you're
don't have
just
control, then there's anarchy.
A piece of stardust living on a planet for a finite period of time that is going to expire, and life should proceed afterward. Unless the world is ending.
Suggest that why not just run my car into a wall then, if that's all that I am? Like, what's my purpose? What's the greater goal of life here then?
The world will keep spinning.
All I am is stardust.
The world will keep spinning. We'll miss you. There will be a lot of people that will be negatively impacted, but the world will keep turning.
Okay, so I agree to all that 100%. I do. But I don't know if that's my argument for why we should maybe question whether we should put religion in check. Because I feel like that's what you and I are trying to do right now is like, we're not trying to hate on the concept of religion. I think we're trying to just ask some pretty powerful questions about its role, how it's used, in particularly these new ones. And when I say new, like I know I had mentioned Mormonism being new when we were talking off air.
Like Scientology?
Yeah, you went right to Scientology. I was like, you're right. Because when was that invented? Like
They believe
7 years ago?
souls were trapped in a volcano at one point. Like, that's legit shit. And that, like, aliens came down and made them watch movies and stuff, like, of their past lives and all this shit. Like, it's fucking wild. It is completely...
Which
like,
I can appreciate, right? I can appreciate it if they're using it as a mythology to try to, again, help ourselves, like to educate us and provide a means of coping
from
with the
King
stages
of
of life.
Queens disagrees.
Yes.
So
no, I agree. No, and I know, and I think a lot of people do. But I would across the board in general with religion. I think this is the reality of humans. Of we are so amazing and so capable, but it also allows us to be so destructive too.
Right.
So our ability to be progressive relative to the power we have to create these things, because make no mistake, we created these things. We created words. We created all of these things.
For me, it came down to things like this. What if aliens are real and they came to visit us?
Yeah.
They're clearly much, quote unquote, closer to God than we are. So
why? Because God is up
because they're
versus down.
Because they're more advanced than us. They're more divine beings. They have higher technology. They're more capable than we are.
And we think the more advancement is what gets us closer versus the more simple.
If we're made in God's image and God is all powerful and there is something more powerful than us, then how are we made in God's image if there's a better version out there?
Well, because I'm not arguing that we're made in God's image or the image of anything that is beyond us is that we manifest from
So
them.
this is the Catholic bias, and this is what I was taught, and so
sure.
I'm coming from that angle, as well as in Genesis, which is also in the Torah. From Judaism, they say that God created man and the beasts which are beneath him, right? So if we believe in science...
because man had to write that.
Right.
You couldn't write anything other than that. Man wrote it.
Yeah, I understand that. And man also wrote that they don't understand anything about what's going on as far as this God that they're writing about. So how much supposed to trust this source? Somebody cite their sources. What the fuck is going on?
Well, and that's where I go. The trust comes from the intent. So if the intent of this religion or this mythology was to help us ourselves and then our youth and then our youth, like the kids of the kids of the kids, to have a means of coping with the complexity of being a human in this inexplicable world as we pass through all these different stages of life from birth to death, like, then yeah, I do trust it because it's truth relative to the purpose, which is to cope through life.
So where I was going with that, though, is as you're talking about the kids of the kids of the kids, if we're science-believing people as well and believe that evolution is a real thing, then given that any animals besides ourselves don't go extinct and say we have modern-day primates or maybe dolphins or something evolved to the point where their intelligence matches that of modern-day humans, then what if they pick up a copy of the Bible and they read that little verse about the beasts beneath the man? How are they going to feel about that? How are they going to feel about that? And you ask these people these questions and they get very defensive. And I'm like, well, oh, I won't be around for that. Well, I mean, but you're embracing that type of thinking and other things that maybe you haven't thought about and perpetuating it back into the world. So there's things like that I'm like, all right, like there's some important...
Yeah, the consequences of personifying religion.
And it's not so much in that instance, but there's other instances, say, gay marriage or gay relationships or abortion or things like that. Yeah,
it comes up often on this show.
Right. So... Yeah, and that's where things
real.
get whack. So religion, I don't think, needs to be involved in all that, and just needs to be focused on itself. Stay in your lane.
Yeah, I think we are in this like crazy crisis of fear, where we are fear driven, and naturally so. Like as complex and as evolved as our human brains are, not as evolved as aliens, but as evolved as we are, our brains still evolved from a space of fight or flight and fear base. And so we are very, very prone to that primitive space of immediately acting out of fear and survival and what is comfortable. And so you start to take who we are now. Oh my God, I feel like this is such a good precursor for when we actually talk about our brain, the human brain, because we need to do a whole episode about that.
Right.
But really that idea of the different places that function in our brain, and as much as it has evolved as humans to be so capable, I think we really do get stuck in that space of we're afraid and we're going to latch on to those things that help us be less afraid.
Like
and I
guns.
think that's where religion comes into play. Yeah.
Or guns, right?
Yeah, lots of things, right? There's lots of things that fire off in our brains that help us with that. And so I think that's where I get so interested in religions that, like I said, that are created. I don't know when Scientology was created. I think if I was going to take a guess, I was probably going to guess maybe like the 70s.
Jesus is going to come back and he's going to look at all the Catholics and be like, what the fuck are you all doing? The Scientologists got it right.
Right? But no, like, I don't even know, like, when was Scientology was invented? What was was it L. Ron Hubbard? That's what I always hear that name, right?
Yep.
And it was invented, if you will.
And he was a science fiction novel author.
Yeah. It was, let's see, he was pretty active in the 1940s. So the Church of Scientology, 1951, maybe? I think it was starting to get organized in the early 50s. So I was guessing 70s, early 50s.
There you go.
So there you go.
The internet's
only
beautiful.
been around for 70 years. Mormonism was started by Joseph Smith over in New York in the 1820s, 1830s. So even that religion is only a couple hundred years old. And so I'm just fascinated by this intention of creating more religions. Right? And why we're creating religions. So then I started thinking, well, T, we could start a religion.
This is, Jesus Christ.
Do you want to start a religion with me?
No. Because I feel like the Church of Judas Christ or whatever it is already has most of what we would need covered. The thing inspired by the Big Lebowski.
Really, I thought that now that we suddenly had all of these followers, it was a calling to us to start our own religion.
No, I don't think that's necessary. But that would perpetuate the cycle of telephone that I was talking about earlier, where people just disagree and then just do their own thing and branch off and change the perspective from which they're looking at things. And that's where we get where we are today. And that's why I'm out on that. And I will just believe that there's something bigger than me and hope that aliens come and take me away or...
So we're not going to be the new Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster, also known as Pastafarianism. Do you remember that? The Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster?
What is this from? Yes, I do recall this, but
it was this guy created this religion back in like the early 2000s. He was 24 years old and he wore a colander on his head. That's how you know the Pastafarians.
Gotcha.
They wear noodle strainers on their heads.
And he's getting tax breaks for that, right?
Oh, I hope so. So you're welcome, everyone, is all I have to say. That T has denied me this future religion we were going to create.
Well, yeah, but we also introduced them to a couple that they maybe didn't know about and might be interested in. So
I just thought it was going to be the best way for me to get Sundays off, T, for recording purposes, was to create a religious holiday every Sunday.
No, you just tell people that the studio is yours, and that's it. It has your name on it.
Oh my God, I'm about to become a Pastafarian.
Jesus
Their concept
Christ.
of heaven includes a beer volcano and a stripper.
All right, well.
Ooh, a whole stripper factory.
Oh my God. If anybody cares to comment on this or anything that they heard in any of our episodes, you may do so on Twitter at CTS Terry or at I'm Dick Francisco. You can find Dick on Instagram at the Dick Francisco. You can find us by searching for the Catch the Sky podcast there or anywhere you listen to podcasts, including Facebook and YouTube. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe button if you enjoyed this episode, and we'll keep cranking them out. Dick, thank you for joining me this week. And is there anything you want to share with our listeners before we go?
No, I'm literally in the process of becoming a pastafarian right now.
Are you signing up online?
Yeah. You can get like a certificate.
Yeah, you can become an ordained Buddhist priest as well.
Dang, I'm going to do that one next.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So you're going to be in multiple religions? Is that allowed?
Yeah, multi-religious.
Jesus Christ. All right. Thank you for listening, everybody. And until next week, keep trying to catch the sky.
Literally, Jesus Christ.